What is up, everyone? Welcome to my channel. My name is Damien. So today we're going to be talking about Bennet. Bennet is one of my main characters. I use Bennet as a support and damage dealer. He excels at supporting, and he has, well, my Bennet right now has an okay damage, I would say. Nothing much very high, but he's able to do floors 11s like it's piece of cake. I'm gonna start by explaining what Benet's kit is, what the kind of abilities that he has, and what does his things do. Bennet has a normal attack, a skill, a ultimate or burst ability, and 3 passive talents, like every other character. His normal attack is he slashes 4 times, and on the 5th slash, you will launch the enemy if the enemy is weak enough. His ability, Passion Overload, is a bit more interesting. His ability, the way it works is you can fast cast it. You just press the button once and it'll do a fast slash fiery sword on the enemy. You can charge it up to level 1. You will do 2 hits, 1 hit, and then the second hit like an uppercut with, well, pyro damage with fire. And then he has level 2, where he does 3 different hits. The first 2 hits exactly like up to level 1, and then level 2 you will launch himself and the enemy as he lands the ground with the explosion that he creates. This is pretty much what the ability consists of. Then we have his burst ability. His burst ability, the way it works is he jumps up, hits the ground, puts everything on fire, creates an enormous area that heals you and buffs your damage at the same time. If you don't have any constellations on Bennet, which I would assume you do not if you're playing free to play, the way that it works is if your HP is above 70%, you will get buffed by the bonus that you get from the skill. So in my case, my skill level 7, so I will get the 84% attack bonus ratio. If you're below 70, this buff will not apply. But the way it works that Bennet's ability will heal you up to 70. So technically you're pretty much at 70 every single time or above it without any issue. So this is something you have to keep in mind with it. This ability regens you per second by doing the 9% of your max HP plus, in my case, 996. This will be how much the ability will be healing you per second, which is actually insane in this game. This means that you just have to pop the skill and you don't have to mind it. Only thing you have to do is stay in the skill so that you keep getting all the bonuses that it gives you, healing and damage. The skill lasts 12 seconds, as you can see here, and has a cooldown of 15, which means that even if you recharge energy fast enough, you will always have to wait at least 3 seconds in between casting the skill. This means that in those 3 seconds, you will not have, if you're looking for a healing source, you have 3 seconds of cooldown per se, where you do not get healed if you're always in the ability. The energy cost is pretty much the full bar currently, so it consumes the entire energy availability that we have. So now we're going to talk about the passive talent called Rekindle. Rekindle decreases the Passion Overload, our ability, our E ability if you're on computer, cooldown by 20%. This means that it goes from, if you do it on max charge, which is 10 seconds, it goes to 8 seconds cooldown. Then we have Fear Not. Fear Not is one of the best passives that most likely a lot of people didn't realize it even existed on Bennet when they started talking about. Bennet was seen as a very mediocre character because he would launch himself, meaning that it would make it harder for you to continue doing damage on the enemy since you're being launched as you charge your ability to the max. But with Fear Not, if you're inside your Fantastic Voyage, your burst ability, okay, it doesn't launch you anymore. It just does that insane launch on the enemy, not on yourself, if you're inside a Fantastic Voyage. It also decreases the cooldown of your Passion Overload by 50%. So if you have Rekindle and Fear Not, your Passion Overload now has around 2.2 seconds to 2.3 seconds of cooldown, which is barely enough time for you to cast the ability, change to another character, cast the ability on that character and go back to Bennet. So if you do this on this way, you'll always have the ability up and you won't have many issues. So I'll explain in a bit how I build my Bennet. This is the essential of how Bennet works. And then the last passive talent doesn't have anything to do with combat. It's pretty much if you deploy Bennet in Mondstadt, he has 25% less time that he spends in Expedition. So before we get into some gameplay of Bennet, because I want to show you guys how everything ties up together, I will give you guys some transparency and show you the actual stats that I have on Bennet. So my Bennet right now is level 78 out of 80, so it's ascended to level 80. He has 30k HP, 1.595 attack, defense it's 1080, it's pretty good, elemental mastery 44, and max stamina 240. And then we have the most important part, which is I have 181 energy recharge. I also have some crit rate, will be taken into account in the build that we're doing. It's actually very important. The energy recharge and the crit rate are our main stats. If you can get a lot of crit damage on it, it's also really good and something that you should take into account. If you look at our weapon, we are using a Favonius sword. The way that Favonius sword works is, for every time you crit, there's an 80, in this case for mine, but let's talk about the one that's, let's start with mine, right? So every time I hit something, if I crit, I have 80% chance of that crit generating amount of elemental particles, which are pretty much used to regenerate your energy, which obviously will give you your ultimate or burst ability eventually. This one is refined rank 3. At refined rank 1, or the base level, you get it's 60% instead of 80%, and I believe that's about 11 seconds instead of 9 seconds every time this can occur. That's pretty much it. That's the only thing that I would say it's maybe a bit more harder to get. Favonius sword is pretty common to get from the rolls. So if you're a new player, most likely you already have this sword, but you thought it was completely useless. It is not useless. It has a decent base attack at level 80, and it has a really good energy recharge. It technically is the best weapon for energy recharge, but I believe that one of the T5 weapons that has energy recharge as well is actually much better than this one, but I have not tested. So if you guys have a Bennet and you have a level 80, go ahead and try it and then tell me what you guys think. If it's actually much better than Favonius sword level 80 or it's not. So this is the core. This weapon is the core of our build. This weapon will make it possible. Our burst ability is able to be up 24/7. Literally, the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to have a 3-second interval in between being able to cast the ability again, because the cooldown on the ability is 15 seconds and the duration of the ability is 12 seconds. So that's pretty much it. This weapon is pretty much the core item of my set for Bennet. Then for transparency's sake, I'll show you guys what I have on the rest. So my Bennet is pretty much like full legendary now. If you watched my video on resin, on how to or what to prioritize on resin or how to use your resin, I would advise you to watch it if you haven't watched it. I mentioned that it is essential, regardless of what substats you have, to have a legendary artifact. All you should worry about at the first stage, especially if you're a free-to player and you're not putting enormous amounts of money into the game, you should focus on getting a legendary item with the base stat that you want. So for example, since I need crit rate due to the Favonius sword proccing from crit hits, I will try to focus on some crit rate. So you can see here, even though I do not need Lava Walker set, since this was the only one I could get my hands on that had crit rate as a base stat, this is what I'm using. As you can see, the substats are nothing special. Don't really forward the build that we're using. I mean, they have a bit of energy recharge, which is always useful, but this is just very mediocre. So do keep in mind that the base stat is what you need. So if you want to forward any of your characters, this goes for all the characters, not only Bennet, keep in mind that having a legendary item, even if the substats are bad, it's a hell of a difference. It makes a huge difference, and just take that into consideration. I have on my goblet, I would like to have pyro damage, I have attack, I have on my clock attack, and then I have on my flower normal HP, which is the only stat you can get, and then crit rate, and then obviously on the plume I have normal attack. None of the substats are anything good. I have to literally reroll all the stats for Bennet to actually become a bit better. So what we're making the most out of here is attack plus 18% and pyro damage plus 15%. Ideally, with Bennet, if you want to do the most amount of damage, since Bennet's skill or E on the PC is such a small cooldown, ideally you would want to have as much pyro damage as possible. You could get the pyro damage from the set, like I'm doing here, and you could get the pyro damage from the goblet. And this would be your ideal way to go with this build, to make this build even stronger. So that will be the next accept that will take most likely. His constellation is on 1, which means that I now get the burst stat, which was a base attack ratio, about 84% for me, below 70%, plus 20% of Bennet's base attack, which you wouldn't get if you don't have this constellation. I was lucky enough to get Bennet on the Venti banner, and then Bennet came out on the shop, and I was able to get this. But this doesn't really make a big difference. I mean, it makes a difference, but it's not essential. This is more of an add up to the entire build that we have. If you eventually can get this full thing, Bennet will be unstoppable, but that goes for every other character. Not having the constellation will not stop you from making this build at all. That's why I think Bennet is one of the best characters for free to play and even for whaling when it comes to healing and supporting. So right now I'm gonna show you guys pretty much how it works, okay? So keep in mind that the idea here is to be able to switch in between your ability and your normal attack. Every 9 seconds you want to at least try to crit a couple times so that you're able to get your energy back. So the energy that you get from the Favonius sword looks like this. So if you hit like that, you see those 3 little balls that come after us, that is the energy that you get from Favonius sword. And then this is the elemental particles that you get from using a skill on any other character. We will want to proc this as many times as possible. So let's do it. That's what we're gonna do right now. I'm gonna show you guys how I normally rotate this once this guy starts spinning, because we cannot do anything. So as I said, we go in, we do a couple crits, we do an elemental particle, we can switch to another character, do the hit on another character. Normally you would use the burst ability from another character. You do our burst ability. Now our skill is much smaller, which means we can proc a lot more, and we can just stay on Bennet if we want, or we can switch to another character. So ideally, let's say you guys have Lisa, everyone has Lisa, we can do Lisa, and then we switch to Bennet again. And you keep hitting him like this over and over again, always the same way. You do ability, and then you do a normal attack, and after 9 seconds or so, and you can just keep rotating like this. So the idea is having a second character that has a skill that you can cast fast, not like Lisa, because Lisa takes a bit longer, so obviously it's not as worth. So ideally you want to have someone like our main character, which also gives elemental particles really easily, and then switch to Bennet, so that you keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we can do like so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's pretty simple. You pretty much go in with Bennet, you use his skill, do a normal attack or normal attack in order to proc the Favonius sword. You switch to another character that has a fast ability, do its ability, go back to Bennet and do your E again, do your skill again, and then try to hit again with Favonius sword and just rotate like this. Keep doing this over and over again, and have your burst ability really fast. You can do this just by staying on Bennet 24/7, but the most efficient way would be to switch in between characters and use each one's abilities while Bennet skill is still on cooldown. So that's pretty much it, guys. This is a video that is guided to beginner players, or even maybe more advanced players that want to dive into Bennet and they want to have somewhere to guide themselves through. This is a very easy build to make, a very cheap build to make, that you won't need as much investment as other builds that are made for end game. This is pretty much an end game build. You can actually run up to floor 12 with this build. I was even able to actually finish chamber 1, but I believe that floor 12 is actually really strong. So unless you're really a big whale or you reached level 50 or you can unlock your character to level 90, it becomes really hard to do floor 12. I have seen people do it regardless, but this is a build that works very well there. So if you guys wanted a build for that, there you go. Bennet works there, and yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Remember that I stream on Twitch from Tuesday to Saturday. It's coming into years in January that I've been streaming on Twitch. If you guys enjoy my videos, do hop in there and go say hi, because I'm there. And if you guys need more help, or you think that my video sucked, or even that you wouldn't say that the video was good, you can also drop comments down below. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a nice one, guys. That was funny. Watch me die.